What happened a few days ago in Venezuela is not just a big surprise to people who are watching it. It's not just a kind of exciting foreign policy story. It is the effectively announcement by the U.S. government that our system is changing, that we are now explicitly an empire. We're an empire. So, of course, the argument has been made, and probably there's some truth to it. The United States has been an empire for a long time, for at least the last 80 years. Since 1945, when we emerged victorious from World War II, or maybe even 1918, when the British Empire effectively ended, maybe even 1898, when we get Puerto Rico, and then a few years later, Cuba from the Spanish Empire. So you could argue that the United States, like all big, prosperous countries, inevitably became an empire. But the difference between the last 120 years and earlier this week is that we never before admitted it, and now we are. So every time we've gone into foreign countries in Latin America, but not just Latin America, really around the world, there has been a pretext. What happened a few days ago in Venezuela is not just a big surprise to people who are watching it. It's not just a kind of exciting foreign policy story. It is the effectively announcement by the U.S. government that our system is changing, that we are now explicitly an empire. We're an empire. So, of course, the argument has been made, and probably there's some truth to it. The United States has been an empire for a long time, for at least the last 80 years. Since 1945, when we emerged victorious from World War II, or maybe even 1918, when the British Empire effectively ended, maybe even 1898, when we get Puerto Rico, and then a few years later, Cuba from the Spanish Empire. So you could argue that the United States, like all big, prosperous countries, inevitably became an empire. But the difference between the last 120 years and earlier this week is that we never before admitted it, and now we are. So every time we've gone into foreign countries in Latin America, but not just Latin America, really around the world, there has been a pretext for that, usually about human rights or democracy. We're not going to put up with this or that government treating its people this way, and we have to go in to stop the tyranny because we are a force for openness and freedom. And there's been some truth in that, of course. But behind that has been the calculation behind every big foreign policy move made by every big country. How is this good for us? Whether it's propping up the dollar or getting access to resources, there's always another reason that we're doing it. And people who are paying close attention know that. Of course, one of the reasons that American troops have been clustered around the Middle East for as long as they have been is not just the Israeli lobby. It's because there's an awful lot of energy in the Middle East, oil and gas, and that's important to our country. So, of course, we have a stake in making sure it can be extracted and moved around the world, obviously. But what makes what happened in Venezuela, taking the head of state out of the presidential palace with Delta Force and bringing him to New York and putting him on trial, what makes that so very different from, say, I don't know, pick one, killing Mossadegh in 1953 in Iran or whatever, is that the U.S. government, the president of the United States, basically just said we're doing this because of the resources. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserve in the world. It's in our hemisphere. It's going to China. And how about no? This is our hemisphere. It's going to go to us. He just said it out loud. And there's something kind of thrilling about that. There's something thrilling about the honesty there. There's no fakery. No, we're the U.S. We're not going to put up with that. This is our interest, and we're going to protect it. That's what the president said. And for the first time in a long time, there was pretty strong support from the right, from Trump voters, for foreign policy adventurism. Keep in mind, a lot of them voted for the president on the basis of his pledge to not start new wars. Well, here is effectively a new conflict, and they're supporting it. Why? Because the president justified it in terms of our national interest. This is good for us. We're not upholding international law. We're doing it because we want the oil. And again, there's something bracing and refreshing about someone finally telling the truth about why we're doing what we're doing. And the president absolutely told the truth. And that's great. And you saw an uptick in national pride. Understandably, the U.S. military is actually capable of more than DEI. We can do complicated things, and that is something to be proud of. The U.S. government is finally acting in the interest of the United States, or says it is, and that's a massive improvement over yet another lecture about a hollow theory. But there are pitfalls, potentially, and it's worth also considering those, because this is a new era. As has been noted, the United States has moved into the imperial phase of empire, leaving the republic, shifting to empire. And that's a pretty familiar life cycle for civilizations, and so we sort of roughly know what will happen. The first thing that's going to happen is that the energy and the power will vest in the executive and not the legislative branch. Congress will inevitably wither. It already is. They were not consulted before we took out the president of Venezuela. They had no role in this whatsoever. They have a constitutional authority here. That was ignored, as it has been many times in the past. When was the last time Congress did something of note? It's been a long time. And that, if you take 3 steps back, is probably not surprising. That's the way these things go. The power moves to the executive, to Caesar or the president or whatever you call him, to the national leader. And that trend will accelerate over time for certain, not decelerate. And that has all kinds of implications, one of which is national elections are now everything. It's always mattered who the president is. Now it matters more than ever, because the president has the ability to act unilaterally in the way we just saw. And that's a lesson that every aspiring president will internalize. And so the next presidential election, 2028, means much more than any presidential election in our history, because the power has expanded so dramatically in the office. And once expanded, it never contracts voluntarily. So that's the first implication. The second implication is that now that we're telling the truth about why nations do what they do, a lot of the arguments that we have relied upon, in fact, that have been the basis of a lot of our foreign policy positions, are now moot. So once you say out loud, we're grabbing Venezuela because we're annoyed they're selling what is our oil to the Chinese, our rival, once you just say that out loud, and again, it's good to be honest, but once you are honest, it's kind of hard to make the case that, well, for example, Russia doesn't have an interest in what happens in eastern Ukraine. It's hard to scold Putin for moving into Ukraine. Here's a great power threatened on its border, and it takes action to protect itself. Now, we've been calling that an unprovoked invasion. The Biden administration called it that. The State Department still calls it that. And our policy is based on the idea that this is illegitimate. And that's why we've been waging a proxy war against Russia for 4 years. You can't really make that argument anymore. How is it wrong for a great power like Russia to protect itself? Well, under the rules that we're now operating under, it's not wrong. You can say, I don't prefer
a real stake,
but you can't point to some abstract principle and say it's absolutely wrong. Why would it be wrong for China to retake Taiwan? The U.S. government already acknowledges that Taiwan is part of China. We have a so-called one China policy. And yet simultaneously, we suggest we would defend Taiwan against Chinese aggression. But wait a second. Taiwan is Han Chinese. Same people, same language, tons of cultural similarities. We want the microchips in Taiwan. We hope it doesn't happen because it would give China greater leverage over the United States. But as a matter of principle, can you really say it's wrong for China to reunify with Taiwan? No, you can't say that anymore. All you can say is we will try to prevent it if we can, but we can't appeal to any higher authority. Now, some will say that higher authority was made up. Well, it certainly was made up, but that principle was the basis of the entire fabled post-war order. What was the post-war order? It was based on one idea. It is wrong for bigger countries to swallow up smaller countries just because they want to. That's why we declared war against Germany when they went into Poland. Though weirdly, we did not declare war against the Soviet Union when they did the same thing the same day. But whatever, the point is, big countries are not allowed to act in a predatory way towards smaller countries because that's wrong. And there's always been, as noted, tons of fakery around that, of course, tons of pretending and pretense. We're all wearing a veil to hide our true motives. But that has still been the basis of the way countries deal with each other. And that is no longer the case as of this week, because the world's great superpower, oldest superpower, the United States, just acted purely in its own interest and said so out loud. So where does that leave all these international bodies? The UN most famously, but all of them. The World Health Organization. How about NATO? Do they have any authority at all? Is there a reason to have them once we stop pretending? Probably not. They may not know that yet. And of course, they're all very well funded and will live on into the future to some extent. But basically, they're dead men walking. They're over. That's all over. We now live in a world where countries will act in their own interest without apology to the extent they are capable of doing so through force or guile, through economic power or military power or trickery. But nobody's going to have to pretend that we're doing this because we're upholding the rights of man. So, again, that's great. A lot of people are excited about it. I'm not going to argue against it because it's already happened. This is done. This is the new world that we live in, for good or for bad. So it is a waste of time and breath to complain about it. Far better, far more constructive to think through, what does this mean going forward? What implications does this have for us? And what are the potential traps in an arrangement like this, one that we've never lived in before? And the first is very obvious, and that's getting over your skis. That's getting stoned on hubris, which is always the pitfall for any man, really, in life, powerful or not. Convincing yourself that you have more power than you actually have is the most basic trap in life. That's how you wind up hurting yourself, because you overextend. And the problem with military success is it does inspire that. This is not true just of the current president, but it's true of every president. And all of a sudden you can wind up in much deeper waters than expected. And of course, in our government, there's an entire constellation of foreign lobbies around any president telling him, do this, do that on behalf of other countries, trying to leverage the enormous power of the United States for their own ends. And so you could very easily imagine soon the U.S. government doing what it did in Venezuela in other countries. And maybe in some it will work, maybe in some it won't work. But there are a couple of them where if it didn't work, you could get in very, very serious trouble. In fact, you could wind up in nuclear war. So it's worth remembering that even a great power is limited in its powers. You can't do everything, and things can go wrong very quickly in ways that you don't anticipate. And that's why, above all, an empire needs serious men to run it. It needs people who understand the stakes, who understand the burden that they are carrying, which is the future of the world, certainly the future of their own people, and who make wise decisions with the national interest ever present in mind. What you don't want are flighty, emotionally incontinent, silly people on the payroll of foreign nations making the decisions in an empire, because that's how you get in trouble. People like, just throwing this out there, say Lindsey Graham. Here he is in the aftermath of Venezuela.
To the people of Iran, we stand with you tonight. We stand for you taking back your country from the Ayatollah, a religious Nazi, who kills you and terrorizes the world. We pray for you. We support you. Donald J. Trump is not Barack Obama. He has your back. And to the Ayatollahs, you need to understand, if you keep killing your people who are demanding a better life, Donald J. Trump is going to kill you.
Every time you see that guy. Every time you see that guy on TV, it really just reminds you of like getting pulled over for DUI with your drunk girlfriend in the passenger seat screaming at the cop, "You can't do this! Take your hands off him! He's going to beat you up!" Lindsey Graham really is the drunk girlfriend, picking fights he'll never have to participate in. We're going to kill you! Settle down, son. No. When we started this company, we promised that we would only partner with other companies that share our values. We didn't want to advertise products made by people who hate us or, for that matter, you. So with that in mind, it is a pleasure to announce that we're working with Charity Mobile. It is a pro-life phone company. Charity Mobile holds a view on abortion that almost every single major U.S. company disagrees with. They think it's completely wrong. It is sad. and celebrating it is one of the darkest things this country's ever done. And we agree completely. So when you switch your cell phone service to this American company, they'll donate a percentage of your monthly price plan to a pro-life, pro-family charity that you choose. There's no better way to prove what their real values are than doing that. No one would do that unless they meant it. All their plans are under $50, and you can keep your existing number and your existing phone if it's compatible. Charity Mobile is a pro-life company serving pro-life customers and supporting pro-life causes, and has done it for more than 30 years. Visit CharityMobile.com/Tucker. Use promo code Tucker to get a free phone with free activation, free shipping, and a free gift with every new line of service. That is not helpful in any way, and it's that exact attitude and that lack of seriousness that can get you in trouble. Once you strip away all the pretense, all the appeals to national sovereignty and human rights and international law, once again, you need serious, smart people making the decision. You do not need harpies screaming about how my boyfriend's going to beat you up if you arrest him. You don't need people like that. You don't need people like Ted Cruz, Laura Loomer, buffoons, bloodthirsty buffoons, hovering around trying to lure you into a new conflict. You don't need people like Mark Levin, who told the president that you should bomb Qatar. Bomb Qatar? Why would you do that? Our strongest ally in the region, let's bomb them? And to the president's great credit, to Donald Trump's great credit, he has, in the last several days, resisted a lot of that. And we know that by how they handled the exit of Maduro in Venezuela. So there are a lot of ways to do this. The neocons had their candidate ready to go. They awarded her the Nobel Prize recently, the abortion lady, the gay marriage lady, the Klaus Schwab acolyte who's going to move the embassy to Jerusalem or something. They were all set to install this lady Machado in the presidency in Venezuela, and Donald Trump shut it down. In fact, he mocked her at his first press conference announcing the capture of Maduro. That is a good sign. That is the best possible sign that someone has thought this through in a very serious way. And I have to say, it looks like Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance played a huge role in that. And a lot of people mock Marco Rubio for being a neocon, which he may or may not be. But my impression was that his influence on this operation was real, and that his preference was not to install the Nobel Prize lady, but instead to continue continuity of government. So what does that mean? Well, it's an imperfect solution. It means taking Maduro's number two and letting her continue to run the country. Now, why would you do that if you were operating under the previous framework, which was basically an emotional framework? Well, we need to bring human rights to Venezuela. We can't depose the dictator and put him on trial in New York and then put his number two in charge of the country. That'd be bad. We need to kill Saddam and then disband the Iraqi army. So someone has learned a lesson from that, and let's hope no one ever forgets the lesson, which is that tyranny is bad, chaos is worse. And Donald Trump clearly learned that lesson because he arrived at an imperfect but wise solution. Let's keep people in charge who can actually keep the country together. Now, we'll see if Delcy Rodriguez can actually do that. We don't know yet. But it's the intent of the administration to do that, to not turn Venezuela into a Libya or an Iraq in our hemisphere with the ensuing migrant crisis and just the disaster, the complete loss of the oil fields, the insurgency, the civil war, massive death toll. I mean, just the pure disaster that U.S. foreign policy has created again and again and again with regime change. That is not necessarily going to happen in Venezuela, and that's a massive improvement, and we should be grateful for that. Whatever you think of grabbing Maduro, that is a really good thing and a really good sign, because it suggests that the administration understands that resource extraction, national interest, is a huge part of running an empire, but it's not the only part. The main part is stability. That's the most important part. From stability flows prosperity. And every other good thing, decency. Nothing good can grow in chaos. And they seem to understand that. The height of the Roman Empire, the most famous empire in history, There were very few wars. It was called Pax Romana, the Roman peace. The empire was powerful enough to establish peace, to establish order and tranquility. And, almost 2,000 years later, we're still talking about it because it was a rare and beautiful thing. So ultimately, an empire exists. Its first job is to preserve stability in the world or the portion of the world over which it rules. And the Trump administration seems to understand that and seems to be moving in that direction. And if so, that's a huge win. So get rid of the dumb, shrill harpies. Don't let them have any influence. No, you can't bomb Qatar. We're not going to threaten to murder the Ayatollah on Fox News. That's not how an empire behaves. We're going to make calculated, wise decisions about what's good for us and what's good for the part of the world that we rule over. The second thing you do once you announce that you're an empire is think through where this is going to go in the next several years. Like, what does the world look like 5, 10 years from now? Well, today, about an hour and a half ago, the president announced that he is hiking the Pentagon budget from $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion. Just announced that. Why? Well, it's hard to know without asking him. He'll explain. But big picture, obviously, that's the kind of budget that a country that anticipates a global or regional war has for its military. There's no other reason to do that. That's not a peacekeeping budget. That's a war budget, a big war budget. So I think it's fair to expect, and all the signs suggest, that we're going to have a big war soon. A big war soon. I think everyone expects that to happen. Hope it doesn't happen, but obviously we're moving in that direction, toward a world war. Sorry. So how do you position yourself for that? Well, you look at a map and you ask the most basic questions. What areas do I want to control? Where are the trade routes? Who's got the resources? Who do I share a language with? Who do I share a common history with? Who do I share a civilization with? And you proceed on that basis, and you try and shore up your team, the allies, against the other team, the Axis or whatever. But you think soberly about how the world is going to cleave once this begins. And if you were to do that for about, 25 or 30 seconds, you would arrive at the most obvious conclusion of all, which is the United States has to have a relationship with Russia in order to survive anything like that. And the reason is really simple: scale and resources. Russia is the largest country in the world. It has the most resources in the world. That means energy, oil and gas. It means all kinds of minerals. It means gold. And in a world where the U.S. dollar is probably not going to be as powerful as it once was, already declining in value, massive incentive for other countries to get off the dollar to trade in energy in other currencies. You need to think about gold. And people are thinking about gold. And by the way, if you are wondering whether volatility is coming up, look at silver prices, look at gold prices over the last year. Investors understand this is a new time. You need to be aligned with Russia. And the number one thing you can't do, Donald Trump has said this many times over the years, is allow Russia and China to become a bloc. Because if you do, then you are facing off against the majority of the world's population, the biggest population bloc in the world, the biggest land mass in the world, and the biggest economy in the world, if you combine those two. So you can't do that. And it's pretty clear that the last administration intentionally drove Russia into an alliance with China, which they now have. Just to be really clear, just to bottom line it, if Donald Trump wants to commit one act as president that will secure him a place in history forever as a hero, it would be to bring Russia back into alliance with the United States. Oh, Russia's bad. Right. Kind of hard to say that after Venezuela. And it's tiresome anyway. No, Russia is not bad or good. Russia is essential to the United States. We cannot survive a global conflict if Russia and China are aligned against us. Period. And it couldn't be more simple, and it shouldn't be very hard at this point to make that deal. There's no reason to pay any attention to the unelected leader of Ukraine. Now, the obstacle in the way is not geostrategic. There is no argument for continuing a proxy war, which is what it is. United States versus Russia. We've been at war for 4 years. All of us are pretending we're not. We are. There's no reason to continue that on the basis of America's national interest. That is not in our interest, and it never has been in our interest. And by the way, Russia is a Christian country, a remarkable country, a very serious country, that we have a lot in common with, whether you like it or not. Oh, he's bad. Okay, stop. We need Russia. And the only reason we are not in alliance with Russia is because the foreign policy establishment in the United States, the weapons manufacturers, and particularly the neocons, believe that they somehow own Russia or want to retake Russia or something, and Putin is in the way. He kicked out the oligarchs. That was gravely offensive to the American finance establishment and to the American foreign policy establishment, and acted on his own country's behalf. Whatever. None of that even matters at this point. Ignore these people. He has to be our enemy? No. If Putin is our enemy, if Russia is our enemy, we cannot survive a global conflict. Sorry. And if you think we can, tell us how. With the help of NATO, which, by the way, is now done. NATO is done. Once the United States takes Greenland, which is owned by a fellow NATO member, what will be the rationale for keeping NATO? The whole illusion has shattered in the past 4 days. None of this is real, and now everyone admits it's not real, so it's time to start thinking about the next step. The third thing to remember is that a functioning empire benefits from the empire. Rome, at its height, was a gleaming, clean, prosperous city. Rome benefited. In the end, of course, it was destroyed by its empire. It was invaded by the people it had subdued, and that is ultimately the fate of all empires, all of them. London is filled with former colonial subjects. That's what that is. And that will happen to every empire. But in the meantime, the point is to help the seat of empire. And so if you can't fix Baltimore, you don't really have a shot of making Caracas functional. And so as you administer this empire, you need to remember the point of this is your own country, making your own country more prosperous, but also stable and cleaner and better for its own citizens. It can't just be, oh, Paul Singer gets rich, therefore it's a good thing. No, no, no. All Americans, not just Paul Singer, have to benefit from this. And they can, and they absolutely can. And the president, to his great credit, has made a huge effort to clean up American cities. Washington, D.C., for example. People mocked him for sending the National Guard in. Washington is safer. It's just a fact. He did that. The last guy didn't do that. Trump did that. Keep doing that. Remember, an empire should be impressive. Not just its satellites or its colonies, but the mother country should be impressive. And ours can be. It is inherently. But the point of this is to help us. And the last thing to remember about being an empire is that it can corrupt you. And this is the fate, ultimately, of all empires. They are corrupted by the imperial project, and they become coarser. As Rome grew, as its territory grew, so did the number of people dying in Circus Maximus. So that does happen over time, but fight back against it. You want to retain the fundamental decency of your country, even as you expand, as you take Greenland and take Venezuela or wherever else we're going. You need to remember we are decent people, and we're going to continue to live as though we are, with dignity. You are not going to become hardened by the violence that you sometimes commit on other populations. And that is really difficult to maintain. And you see this even in Washington. You saw this, in fact, 5 years ago yesterday when Ashley Babbitt was shot in the chest for doing nothing, an unarmed woman, an Air Force veteran, murdered by James Byrd in the Capitol building. And nothing happened. And the reason nothing happened, the reason the guy who shot Ashley Babbitt, who'd already been disciplined for leading a loaded handgun in the men's room, so he had a documented record of recklessness. There was no reason to kill her. She posed no conceivable threat to him. But the reason that nothing ever happened is because there were almost no members of Congress who thought it was a big deal. Now, why is that? Why would members of Congress, 535 members of Congress, are they uniquely hard-hearted? Well, they are, actually. And why is that? because they spend a huge portion of their day, every single day, talking and thinking about killing people in other countries. And if you watch enough snuff videos of the U.S. military taking out this or that bad guy, after a while, it inures you. After a while, it's not such a big deal to kill somebody. And you can make a case for that if there are foreigners who threaten you. You can never make a case for the U.S. government casually killing Americans. All of us should be offended by that every single time, and we should push back against it. Hey, whoa, 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 I'm not a Houthi. Don't treat me like one. I'm not a Venezuelan. Stop. Americans have to remember that the point of this exercise is to secure the homeland and everything good about it. And one of the very best things about the United States is the regard that Americans have for human life and for dogs. There's a sweetness and a sentimentality to Americans that would be sad as hell if we lost. Don't allow the killing that takes place overseas to make you think it's okay for the U.S. government to treat you that way. But they naturally do. And it's one of the reasons, and I hate even to say this, but I've just noticed it from living around it for so long, that some of the most authoritarian members of Congress, almost all of them actually, are career military officers. Not enlisted, they're all officers. But they're career officers who spend an awful lot of time thinking about how to kill America's enemies or rivals. Not even attacking that was their job. But that attitude seamlessly transfers to American citizens. And our government is never allowed to have that attitude toward us. Again, we're not Houthis. We have rights because we're citizens. You serve at our pleasure. We own this government. You may say you own Venezuela. Okay. You don't own me. I own you because I'm the citizen and you're the servant. That posture is essential and very hard to keep up during the empire phase of civilization. Very, very hard. Because, again, there are a lot fewer meaningful democratic structures in an empire. Nobody cares about the Congress anymore. It's all about the president. And that's great when you have a great president. And hopefully we always will, because once again, so much power has been vested in that office that at this point you kind of can't let AOC have it, because you can't let any irresponsible person who hates whites or believes in transgenderism or wants to destroy America, people like that cannot be president, period, anymore. Because there's so much power now in the presidency that they could do the kind of damage you don't even want to think about. But you have to push back against an imperial government treating you like a subject. And there is no issue on which this is clearer than free speech, which, once again, is the basis of our country. It's not just some line in the Bill of Rights. It's the whole reason the United States is exceptional. And that's clearer than it's ever been, because the country that gave us the concept of free speech, Great Britain, puts thousands of people in jail every single year for thought crimes. And so it's not like this is a distant, they only do it in China or North Korea kind of problem. This is happening in the country that gave birth to us, Great Britain. It could very easily happen here. And the only way that it won't is if American citizens draw a line in the sand and say, you will have a revolt if you take away my right to say what I think. Period. You will have a revolt on your hands. And they should. Because that is the only remaining power for most American citizens. They don't have economic power, of course. The power of labor is basically gone. AI will erode it still further. We're going to go on strike. Who cares? You're being replaced by machines. Shut up. They don't have economic power. Does voting matter? We can debate that. Most people kind of doubt that it does. So what power do you have left? What's the equalizer here? There's the guy in charge. There's you, the subject. What makes you both human? Only one thing. That's your inalienable God-given right to say what you really think. No matter how kooky your opinion is, no matter how offensive it may be to the people in charge, you have an absolute right. Inalienable. It can't be taken from you because it wasn't granted to you by any temporal authority. You have that. If you give that up, you are a slave. And not surprisingly at all, given the way these things roll, given this new era that we're in, all of a sudden, you are hearing calls, not just from the left, not even primarily from the left, to end the freedom of speech in the United States. And this is the red line. Here's one example. This, I think, was on CNBC New Year's Day. Watch this.
I know it's difficult to hear, but it's time to limit the First Amendment in order to protect it, and quickly before it's too late.
What do you mean?
I mean that we need to control the platforms, all the social platforms. We need to stack rank the authenticity of every person that expresses themselves online and take control over what they are saying based on that ranking.
The government.
The government should
control the social media.
Yeah.
So here's a foreigner coming to our country and saying with a straight face, you need to get rid of the First Amendment because people are using it to criticize my country, sitting on a TV set in New York City, lecturing a country that's not his own about how they're not allowed to criticize him and the government should punish them for doing it.
There's been a lot of noise in the news recently, but none of it matters if you can't hear it. There's no shame in this. Millions.
Of course, it's not a crime. It may be an ugly opinion. It may be an unsustainable argument. You may be an idiot. You have a God-given right to that opinion and a God-given right to express it. And this is the only country on planet Earth where you still can. And again, if they try and take that away, you need to have an insurrection against the government because you're done at that point. An insurrection against the government if they try and take away your right to say what you think, your right to your own conscience. Period. That has to be it right there. It's fine to attack America, but you can't attack Israel. This is, by the way, part of the problem with administering an empire is that a lot of people, and Jay Collins clearly one of them, might be good people, might be right about a lot of different things, but they come to identify so strongly with foreign countries that they forget about their own. This was a huge problem during the British Empire. There were tons of colonial military officers and administrators who spent their careers in India and kind of cared a lot more about what happened on the subcontinent than they cared about in England because that's where they spent their lives. Those are the problems they spent their careers solving. So they wound up identifying with foreign countries more than their own. This is absolutely a feature of empire, hard to fight against, but it's essential that we do fight against it. No, what matters is the United States. That's who's paying for this. That's in whose name these actions are being conducted. The only justification for any of this is to serve American citizens, not the citizens of Israel or Sri Lanka or any other place, Venezuela, but America. So you'd think this would all be very, very obvious, but somehow, I actually called around on this and was told, oh, it's not a real position, but there's a current administration official, like an actual official in the executive branch right now who's making this case that Americans actually don't have, they have a First Amendment, but it turns out that actually you can't say anything I don't like or else you go to jail. This guy's name is Rabbi. I don't think he actually has a congregation. I don't know what it means to be a rabbi. I don't think he actually runs a congregation. Yehuda Kaploon. Actually met him. Seems like a nice guy. But here are his views. And you should keep in mind that the views you're about to hear are much, much more common than you may realize. Here he is.
The amount of hate speech that we've seen during this time, I mean, it's off the charts. You look through social media, you see it even on television. The lines, they're not even blurred anymore. They're gone. How do you even begin to tackle such a phenomenon?
Well, I think we have to have an understanding that, first of all, in this country, we believe very strongly in free speech. It's the basis in our Constitution. And we also believe in the freedom of religion. You have to balance that. But you balance that in two ways. Europe has hate speech laws, probably some of the best on the books, but it's selectively enforced. So if you selectively enforce a rule, it's not going to have any effect whatsoever. And you can see how it's had no effect in Europe in monitoring and stopping the hate.
So this guy is something called the anti-Semitism czar. It's an office set up by George W. Bush, like most insane, unjustifiable things, anti-Semitism czar at the State Department, focused on one specific kind of ethnic hate, not protecting all Americans, There is no stop anti-white hate czar, of course, and there never will be, because the same people who are upset about hate are promoting that kind of hate. But whatever, it's one specific group protected somehow by the United States State Department. But this is a guy who actually has a job in the administration saying it's great. European hate crimes laws are great. Well, first of all, every single one of them is immoral. And two, they're all contrary to the First Amendment. You couldn't have laws like that here. And three, when you actually look at those laws that Rabbi Yehuda Kaplan is saying are so great, they're used to suppress Christianity. That's what they actually are, of course. And creativity and freedom of thought and individual conscience and the humanity of the populations of European countries, all suppressed by this. But Christianity is always number one. So in Finland, for example, one of the lead opposition political leaders is now on trial. Why? Why is she on trial? Because she tweeted a quote from Romans, the Epistle to the Romans by St. Paul. You may have heard of it. It's a significant book in the New Testament. And in it, he describes basic Christian sexual ethics, like one man, one woman, against other forms of sexual expression. That's Christianity. And that was deemed a hate crime under the law, under those European hate crimes laws, hate speech laws that Rabbi Yehuda Kaplan is saying we should emulate, but maybe enforce a little tougher, more selectively. This is what will destroy the country and divide the country and make people hate each other. Whenever the U.S. government protects one group and allows others to be attacked, whenever the U.S. government promotes one group and suppresses another group, it's prima facie unfair, but it's also the most divisive thing you could ever do to any country. If you treated your children differently, they wouldn't hate you, they'd hate each other. And every parent knows that. So all of this stuff is corrosive to the United States at exactly the moment when national cohesion is going to be essential, because there is a rocky road ahead that's very obvious. And here you have an administration official calling for hate crimes laws. So the answer has to be no. And it has to be no now more than ever, because once again, we're entering into a brand new phase with new rules. And all of us are going to have to adapt to those rules. We may support them, we may not support them, but that's what we're doing. But in the process, we cannot give up what it means to be American on the most basic level. You don't need to be an economist to see what's happening. The dollar is in trouble. It's getting weaker. It's sad, but we're not in charge of it. So we have to respond appropriately in ways to protect our families. When paper money dies, it's going to be
place that happened in Libya. I don't
the entity and holding something that endures and cannot be manipulated or taken from you. So if you've been waiting for the right time to act, this is it. Visit battalionmetals.com. Someone who has watched this more carefully than almost anyone I know and whose instincts are admirable and wise is Megyn Kelly. And so I want to bring her in now to get her sense of what exactly Venezuela means. Megyn, thanks so much for doing this. I have a million questions for you, but first, you said right after Maduro got grabbed that you weren't exactly sure. You were skeptical. What are your views of it now?
Yeah, still skeptical. I said, I'm not on a green light posture on this. I'm not on a red light. I'm on a yellow. And I don't love it. I got to be honest. I, first of all, would prefer we use our military defensively and not offensively, which may be anachronistic. But I'm not really in the mindset at all, especially now with three kids who are 2 out of 3 in their teens, of being super bellicose in our language or our approach to the world. And I don't really see this as necessary. I don't see this one as necessary. I understand what Trump is saying is the reason, and I too appreciate the honesty. I actually appreciate that we're not cloaking it in democracy. Like, we wanted the oil. He was really explicit. And we didn't want them playing footsie with China and Iran and Cuba. Okay, so at least he's being honest about it. But I worry very much about unintended consequences. And, I realize it's not Libya, it's Venezuela, but okay, a couple things happened in Libya. First of all, when we killed their leader, it's been chaos ever since. And I see the same sort of power vacuum there, potentially, even with this vice president left in place, that happened in Libya. I don't think we actually are going to run Venezuela because we don't want to, and we don't want to have a long-term presence there. So I do wonder what the power vacuum will be. I'm not so sure this vice president is going to be able to rule there with the same iron fist as Maduro. I don't know what's going to happen. But I also think about what happened in Libya, Tucker, when we were even younger. And that's when you and I were in college. And for the years prior to that, Libya was doing some bad things in the world. They bombed the nightclub in Berlin, and some Americans got killed, and Reagan then bombed them. And we were sort of ratcheting up. It wasn't an outright war with Libya, but we were escalating tensions here and there with them. And the next thing we knew, we just sort of thought we had settled the matter because we are the big bad United States. And once we sort of bomb you, you're supposed to go away and realize it's going to get worse for you. But what Libya actually did was they planted a bomb on Pan Am 103 and brought down that flight over Lockerbie, Scotland, killing 259 people, most of whom were American, including 35 students from Syracuse University, where I was going to school as a freshman. And every year I was there, for 4 years, we had the memorial honoring those 35 18 and 19-year-olds who had been studying abroad in London and had been killed over Scotland on their way home from their study abroad program because of these little sort of power battles that had happened that weren't supposed to mean anything. We're supposed to be just sort of asserting our power and teaching somebody a lesson. Did anybody anticipate that? I don't think so. Okay, Venezuela is not Libya. It's not full of a bunch of Middle Eastern potential terrorists, but it's not great. Like, they've got a bunch.
Just real quick. If you're gonna use the J word, that's fine. But just so you know, if you do, YouTube blacks it out. It's not me that's doing it; it's YouTube. So you might want to use a different word, and specifically go chuck yourself. I mean, I know it's fine to have your opinion. I'm cool with free speech and everything, but just so you know, none of your chats are showing up because there are blocks by YouTube. So there's still people that are using censorship. So just want to let you know ahead of time, your chats are not showing up.
Bunch of gangs down there who have zero problem killing Americans. Let's check in with Tren de Aragua. Let's check in with Laken Riley's family to find out whether they have any empathy for Americans. Doesn't seem so. And I don't know what faction of that group we're ticking off right now with our behavior and going in there and saying the oil's now ours. We're going to sell it. We'll give you a piece of it, but we're taking it. So I really do worry about unintended consequences, and I object to empire. I much prefer the way we started with the original George Washington. Let's avoid foreign entanglements. Let's not cozy up too much to any one country. Let's enjoy the beautiful blessing of the two huge oceans on either side. I don't want to have to take care of Venezuela. I really don't. I'm not particularly worried about them cozying up too much to China and Russia, neither of whom are in a position right now to attack us. I don't think I have a reason to attack us at the moment. So I don't like it. I still support Trump, obviously, but I don't think this is something he ran on at all. I think he actually ran on the opposite promise that we weren't going to be doing this stuff. I don't think anybody who voted for him was thinking about this when we voted for him. Everyone's rooting for him, everyone who's sane and, independent-minded. But this is a massive distraction from where his attentions should be, in my view, which, as you point out, are rightly Baltimore and other cities that are genuinely suffering. And I think if we roll into these midterms, he gave a big speech before the Republicans in Congress yesterday about we need to win the midterms. If we roll into these midterms and we have a year almost of Trump focusing on running Venezuela as the so-called affordability message is ubiquitous in the left-string press every day, it's not going to help. He's going to lose control of the House. I don't think the Republicans will lose the Senate, but we're going to have nonstop 2 years of investigations. And look, Trump hasn't been doing a great job of getting his agenda pushed through as legislation the first year, because as it turns out, you really do need 60 senators now in order to enact a legislation, unless you get rid of the filibuster. So think how we'll do when Republicans don't even control the House. We will have absolutely no laws passed, which, Tucker, will only feed into what you're talking about, which is this idea of empire and the executive branch growing bigger and bigger. He's already rendered Congress almost irrelevant. They'll become even more so with the Democrats in control of the House, because all they're going to be doing is snipping at his heels, trying to investigate everything he does. But they won't even be relevant in terms of potentially passing legislation, because it'll be an absolute no-brainer. Nothing will happen. The executive branch will grow. And okay, maybe I can get, comfortable with empire if I must, if we're thinking about a J.D. Vance, but we are not going to have a Republican in the White House forever. Never mind the right Republican in the White House forever. We are going to wind up with a Gavin Newsom one of these days, or an AOC. And then what? And by the way, even if we move on from Trump or a JD type, president, and stick with like Republican, who's going to run the empire? Like, what if we wind up with a Mitt Romney? What do we do with Venezuela then? What if the collapse happens then, because we no longer have a strong hand on the tiller the way we might with Trump here? What chaos will ensue? I don't think we have an accurate feel for what we've unleashed. And I think it was unnecessary.
I think you make a strong case. I've thought all of that. I don't think I articulated it quite as well as you just did. And of course, I'm totally opposed to empire too. I'm kind of for an agrarian society with no electricity, small communities. I'm serious. I mean it. But we're not in charge.
I know.
And so this is a new system. Clearly, we're moving toward it. At some point, this president or some president is going to start ignoring the courts too. And you're going to have just total power in the executive. And there's a lot of evidence that the emerging America demographically wants that. I mean, that's the case in most countries, and it will be the case here probably. I'm not endorsing that at all. I'm just sort of looking ahead generationally, and we're going to get something like that. So given that, I feel like you need to make smart decisions, wise decisions with the future in mind always, especially now. And there are all these ghouls who've somehow attached themselves like barnacles to the executive branch, like Mark Levin and Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz, screeching about how, okay, that was a great success 4 days ago. Now we need to roll into Tehran. Do you think that will happen?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like you watch Lindsey Graham, it's like he's got the taste of blood in his mouth and he's excited. I mean, he's practically frothing. It was disturbing. And, this is who, for right now, Trump is surrounding himself with. You had Lindsey Graham on Air Force One with him. You had Levin at the White House with his arm around Trump, almost trying to like manhandle him, like sort of assert power over Trump, like kind of pulling him in. And, Trump doesn't like that. Even when you shake hands with Trump, he makes sure he's in command and he's in the dominant position. But Mark Levin goes in there and almost tries to emasculate him, like with the arm around, like this is my guy, which is exactly the wrong messaging to allow and to send in Levin's case. So it is disturbing, like how close, not just the neocon, I think there are some normal neocons, like I would consider probably, Britt Hume's probably neocon-y. Some of my pals over at National Review are but they're not frothing at the mouth crazy for blood neocons.
Exactly. That's right.
I mean, what Lindsey Graham stands for is deeply disturbing to me. And that stuff about the Ayatollah, like, our president's going to come kill you. Would you just stop? Like you said, just, hey, as far as I know, Lindsey Graham doesn't have teenage children who are going to have to go fight his war he now wants against Iran. But I do, and you have kids in their 20s, and some of us actually have a real stake in making sure that does not happen. We do not want that. It's, again, unnecessary. So it's really kind of getting crazy. And I also think you're right about the alarming increase in military budget.
Okay, guys, we're going to move on to something else.
I also think you're right about the alarming increase in military budget.
Bear with me here. So let me know what you guys think about Lindsey Graham. I am going to put up another poll. So the poll for Tucker Carlson, 53% do not trust Tucker Carlson and 47% do. So slightly in the direction of not trusting him. I guess it's sort of expected. But yeah, so I'm probably going to move on from this. It's halfway through, but yeah, Tucker Carlson has really kind of changed his tune. He's changed, and he was in the CIA, or his father was in the CIA, and he's changed his tune. He was with CNN. He was also with MSNBC. All of a sudden now he's kind of gone in the Nick Fuentes direction, which I think is kind of interesting. So he sort of goes back and forth with his opinions and things, and that is a problem. And I think that's why there's a lot of these people become untrustworthy. Megyn Kelly, all these guys, they start out on Fox as well, and so over time they get fired, they go off on their own, and they have that, they're popular just simply because they were on other programs. So I want to go into some of the things here that have been going on in with the leftist protests, and I am curious to hear what everyone has to say about them, because they are getting quite violent, and this is a continuation of what happened with the ICE shooting. And of course, everyone was pretty much saying, well, it was, well, not everyone, but you have the leftists that are saying that ICE was at fault, and then you have the other half that are saying it was the protesters' fault. And of course, I've gone over this over and over and over again, and I'm not going to continue to go over it, but you're seeing a continuation of the leftist violence that's going on. So I'm going to play some clips of some different things that have been going on. But let me know what you think. Actually, I'm going to take this poll down. I think it's pretty much going to be almost 50-50 with Tucker Carlson, which, quite honestly, I thought it was going to be, more one way or the other. I thought it was going to be more of people trusting Tucker Carlson than not trusting Tucker Carlson. So let me know why, if you would, in the chat, let me know why you think one way or the other with Tucker Carlson, whether you trust him and why. And if you don't trust him, same thing, why. So I'm going to end this poll, and I want to do another one with Lindsey Graham. 370 votes. That's a lot. So let's see. Lindsey Graham. Do you think Lindsey Graham is a warmonger, yes or no?
Well, I don't call them undocumented immigrants. I call them illegal immigrants, because that's what they are. The reason they're not documented is they're not legal, okay? They're illegal immigrants. 74% of the illegal immigrants that we've detained have had criminal charges against them, okay? The other 26% were riding with them, okay? So when we stop a car, we run a warrants check on everybody in the car. When there's a call for service, we run a warrants check on the victim, the suspect, and all the witnesses, okay? We call that 26% collateral. But 3 out of 4 of them have committed another criminal charge. Now think about that for a second. They couldn't commit that crime if they weren't here, but they did.
Wow.
So now you're having to take
there.
your taxpayer money and my taxpayer money and pay for the prosecution of those folks, pay for the public defender that defends them, pay for the jail and the prison sentence depending on what the charges are. So and the majority of the 26% that was left out of the 74% of them had criminal charges. They were what we call collaterals, and most of them were with the person committing the crime. And that's the numbers that we have so far. And those, so how many illegal immigrants have we arrested this year? We've arrested 557 that have criminal charges as well as they're here illegally. That's just this year. But here's the thing that, and let me focus on this, and I know on social media people have already tuned out, but you need to tune back in and listen to this. The reason that you see ICE flooding into Minnesota and Minneapolis and into Los Angeles, into these big cities, is because they refuse to turn over the illegal immigrants who are being arrested by the local police department where there's outstanding ICE warrants. If they would have simply, instead of fighting back and pushing back against the federal government, instead of violating the federal law, which is what these leaders have done there, if they just said, look, ICE, we don't want our police actively engaged in ICE enforcement, but you can come in our jails, and as we make arrest, you can go through your evaluation process and remove those criminals that are committing crime against the citizens of the United States and against each other. You can remove them. Then they wouldn't be flooding these big blue areas with all of these ICE agents. So it's the policy and the laws that the California and the Illinois and the Minnesota and the Oregons and the Portlands and the city, it's the laws that they've passed that's created the environment for ICE to have to go in there and do it all on their own. And it puts the ICE agents at additional risk. The local law enforcement officers have already taken the risk to arrest these people. They're in custody. They're locked up. They're in a county lockup or a city lockup someplace or a state lockup for their causes. But yet they're telling the city, the county, or the state prison system, turn these illegals that have committed crime back out into the community on our people. And so if ICE can't get help from the state and the local folks, then they have to send more resources in order to do the job. All of this could have been avoided. All of this could have been. You don't see that happening in Florida. You don't see ICE sending 1,000 people down here to go into Miami or Jacksonville or Tampa or Orlando or our big metro areas. You don't see that. You know why? Because we're cooperating. And this same environment could be in every one of those states if the state had cooperated. But instead, you've elected a bunch of people there, governors, primarily, House and Senate members, mayors, city commissioners, county commissioners, that said, hey, we're going to let these criminals that are here illegally committing crime against the people of the state of California or Minnesota or wherever, we're going to allow them to come back out into the community and commit more crime against you rather than turn them over to our federal partners. That's why you're seeing all this scrum all over the nation. That's why you're seeing it. If they were cooperating like Florida was cooperating, there would not be the protest. There would not be the conflict. People wouldn't be angry. They wouldn't be going to businesses because they would be caught up like they are in Florida when they're committing crime and we turn them over to ICE. They're already caught and they're out of the country. That's why you're seeing this. It's created by the law and the practice and the policy of the elected officials at the state level, the county level, and the city level, telling them to oppose federal law. Now, why in the world you want those people in those positions that think it's all right to oppose the law, that think more of the criminals than they do the suspects? I don't know. That's why we call this the free state of Florida, because we're for the people. They're for the criminals.
Lord Snooty, I think it's funny that your country, especially London's been completely taken over. So to even say anything about your country, and I mean, if you post a meme that is considered to be racist, you go to jail for 2 or 3 years. I mean, your country's lost. So for you to even say anything about any other country is a joke. And the fact, that you guys don't have guns there and you still get knifed, and terrorists, run through your streets, run over you, stab you to death and everything else. And I mean, of course, it's basically turned into a third world country. I mean, people like you, it's like, you're a joke, dude. So, I just find it funny that, the Brits have always thought that they had a better pot to piss in, and then we kicked your ass. And then you guys still have shit to say, even though your entire country is an absolute shithole, and you stand there like a bunch of homos and don't do anything about it. So, you can talk about knife crime all you want. I mean, your country still sucks. Your London sucks now. Used to be a great country, and now people like you have ruined it. So it's a shame. I mean, and you're the guy. You're the type of Casper milquetoast, effeminate, basically a woman who allows these things to happen. You even allow like women police to arrest you and put you in jail for posting a meme. I mean, that's the gayest shit ever. Like, if you want to rank the number one gayest shit ever, that to be arrested for posting a meme is the gayest shit ever. All right, moving on. Now here's my point, where you have tons of assaults that are going on against ICE agents over and over and over again. And so it just proves beyond any reasonable doubt that what's going on is paid leftists that are going out of their way to assault ICE agents, and they just keep proving the point, over and over and over again. So he gets assaulted one time, gets assaulted here. Look how close these people are getting to him. Yep. Trips him again. So there you go. In 30 seconds, you see 3-4 assaults on an ICE officer. So once again, this was, Lord, nobody cares anymore. Just go somewhere else, man. Like nobody cares, and nobody believes you either. So you're like me. Mommy died in the Holocaust. Like nobody cares. So here you have these ICE agents getting assaulted over and over and over again. Here's a really good, now that's a perfectly good example where we need to start cracking down. And here is another example. Now this guy gets shot in the eye, and what he was essentially saying during an interview is how basically they're blaming the ICE agents once again, but then finally somebody actually had the video of what happened. So let's take a look at what the actual video is. And I'm going to go back to his original interview.
What can you tell us about your injuries now and the prognosis? Will you be blind in that eye for life?
So here you could see him fighting with officers. And in order for the officer to get him off of him, he shoots him.
What I've heard the doctors say, and everyone else, yes.
With a non-lethal weapon, by the way.
They said my glove was ruptured. I had my lower lid.
And did you see this? The guy's got fingernail polish like Lord Snooty probably has. Probably has fingernail polish just like him. Look at this. And now you know that there's something wrong with these guys. There's always something that's not right. So, here's an example of it. So yet they want to attack people, and then they want to get away with it.
My lower lid was
Listen how he's talking. He talks like Snooty.
From my temple to fix it. There's a lot to it. I don't remember
he's gender
all the
confused.
things that they said. I have fractures in my skull that they can't fix, and I can't sneeze or cough because it's dangerous too. I remember also when I shot, there was pepper in it, and I had pepper down my throat. It made it hard to breathe for a long time. They pulled a piece of plastic the size of a nickel out of my eye. They said I had shards of metal, glass, and plastic all throughout my eye and behind my eye and in my skull. And they also said that I had a piece of shrapnel metal about a few millimeters away from my carotid artery. And they said it was a miracle I survived, because if it got any closer, if it hit that, I would have died that night.
Totally blind right now? You see nothing out of the eye?
Nothing out of the eye. Yeah, it's black.
So there you go. So this is too what you're seeing. There's a consistent pattern of behavior. There's also a type of person that does these types of things. And again, like I was saying this in the live stream last night, nobody's putting up with this anymore. No one is listening to this stuff anymore. And they've just simply had enough. And the number one fix to all of this is you don't go out and physically violently protest. If you want to protest, you protest, but you don't physically violently protest. And that's what these guys are doing. So, and it's obvious that these are paid. It's organized. It's organized crime, essentially, is what it is. So it's organized crime paid for by people in order to create the violence, in order to create this stuff. And people are sick and tired of it. And they've just had enough. Trump had announced today some healthcare plan. So let's listen to it. I don't know if it's going to be any good or not. Let's see. But we certainly need help with healthcare here for sure. So let's listen to this.
Today, I'm thrilled to announce my plan to lower healthcare prices for all Americans and truly make healthcare affordable again. We're doing things that nobody's ever been able to do. We're calling it the Great Healthcare Plan. Instead of putting the needs of big corporations and special interests first, our plan finally puts you first and puts more money in your pocket. The government is going to pay the money directly to you. It goes to you, and then you take the money and buy your own health care. Nobody's ever heard of that before, and that's the way it is. The big insurance companies lose, and the people of our country win. This proposal locks in the massive discounts on prescription drugs that my administration is achieving through our most favored nation drug pricing agreement. Now, when you hear about that, for 40 years they've been trying to do it, but they never were able to do it. No other president was able to do it. I got every other country to approve it by the use of tariffs and other things. They all approved it. Nobody else got it. No other president got it. And for the most part, they didn't even try because they felt it was impossible. It'll bring down drug prices 80, 90%, in some cases, just numbers that nobody's ever heard of before. Your prescription drugs will come way, way down. And under this policy, the prices of many drugs will be slashed by 300, 400, and even 500% starting this month at the TrumpRx.gov. So instead of Americans paying the highest drug prices in the world, which we have for decades, we will now be paying the lowest cost paid by any other nation. So any other nation that's paying the lowest cost, that's what we're going to pay. And the American people will get the savings. So I have to reiterate, the lowest price in the world is what you're going to pay. Before, you were paying the highest price in the world by far, and the politicians did nothing about it. So I'm asking Congress to complete the work that we've started. Next, my plan would reduce your insurance premiums by stopping government payoffs to big insurance companies and sending that money directly to the people. Obamacare was designed to make insurance companies rich. I call it the Unaffordable Care Act, with billions of dollars in taxpayer subsidies that helped their stock prices skyrocket over 1,700% as you paid more money for health care every single year, more and more. The premiums went higher and higher. I want to end this flagrant scam and put extra money straight in.
Okay, Lord, you're just being all you're doing is just annoying everyone. So I will put you out for a while, and then we can all go back to listening to
the healthcare
actual
savings
content
account in your name, and you go out and buy your own health care, and you'll make a great deal. You get better health care for less money. That way you can choose the care that is right for your family. To further reduce insurance premiums, my plan ends the giant kickbacks to insurance brokers and corporate middlemen that only drive up the costs, and that's what they're intended to do, drive up the cost. But we're driving down the costs. And it fully funds a long neglected part of the law known as the Cost Sharing Reduction Program. This measure alone should cut premiums on the most popular Obamacare plans. It's hard to believe there are any because it's a hated program. It's unaffordable, but it's going to cut them by an average of 10 to 15%. Next, the Great Healthcare Plan. That's the name. It's called the Great Healthcare because it's great healthcare at a lower price. Mandates unprecedented accountability and transparency from insurance companies and all healthcare providers so that special interests can no longer profiteer at your expense. As the saying goes, sunlight is the best disinfectant. That is why my plan orders all insurance companies to publish rate and coverage comparisons in very plain English. It requires insurers to publish detailed information about how much of your money they're going to be paying out in claims versus how much they're taking in profits. In other words, you will be able to watch the scam.
Thanks for subscribing.
It forces them to release detailed data on how many claims are being denied and whether those denials are eventually overturned on appeal. And most importantly, it will require any hospital or insurer who accepts Medicare or Medicaid to prominently post all prices at their place of business so that you are never surprised and you can easily shop for a better deal or better care. And you're going to end up doing both. You're going to get a better deal and better care. We will have maximum price transparency and costs will come down incredibly. I'm calling on Congress to pass this framework into law without delay. Have to do it right now so that we can get immediate relief to the American people, the people I love. Thank you very much.
So what do y'all think? I mean, do you think that anything is going to happen with healthcare? I'm not going to hold my breath. I certainly hope that he does. I think that that right now, and I said this yesterday, that he is doing a lot of things now all of a sudden because I think he realizes that he is starting to realize that he's losing the base, the people that voted for him, especially the younger people, that that they feel that he is not doing enough. And healthcare is one of those things that he promised to do in 2016. He didn't do it. And then of course, no new wars and that, the tax benefits weren't as good as he promised. So I think that there's a faction of the base that is getting upset. And so he's kind of rushing in to get these things. He might have had it, on the agenda already, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I hope that that he changes, because the Obamacare is not working. It's not healthcare. It's just simply not. I mean, it's not. I don't think that's really in dispute at this point. That needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed quickly, because there's a lot of people, I think, spending a lot of money every month. So. All right, let's see. So here are more protests. And by the way, when these officers are doing what they're doing, it's not for, fun. They're doing it because they're being violently attacked by leftist violent protesters.
This is America. We have a peaceful right to power. We have a constitutional right to assemble here. We're afraid. We're violating our rights. We're good. We're good. This is treason. We have a right to be here. We have a constitutional right. What are you doing to that person? What are you doing?
Yeah, Josh, I don't understand why he doesn't arrest Soros. I don't understand why Soros hasn't been brought up in front of Congress. Soros has been doing this for years. It's been documented in books. There's plenty of evidence beyond any reasonable doubt that he's funding this stuff. And he is not, and he hasn't been held accountable. Neither has Alex Soros. So I don't know what you think about that, but yeah, something needs to happen here.
We're told that the Border Patrol. Okay.
Look at this. It's just constant
right now. So, John, we're told that the Border Patrol chief,
constant violence now.
Them at this time. Let's see if we can pick up the audio. Let's listen. Okay, so obviously
looks like tear gas has been deployed to push the protesters back now. It looks like the federal agents have had enough of this and they're trying to disperse the crowd. You heard the clack, clack, clack of the air.
By the way, it shouldn't just be dispersing the crowds. They should be arrested and charged with violence, with assault of federal officers.
Guns firing pepper balls. Saw them yesterday in a similar protest that wasn't quite as big as this, firing pepper balls into the ground as opposed to actually firing them at the protesters themselves. We don't know why at this moment the federal officers have decided to push the crowd back. It may be that they were trying to get some vehicles out of that facility and the protesters were blocking the driveway. You still see some federal agents are back there blocking the driveway. But for some reason, the federal agents have decided it was time for this crowd to be dispersed. Let's listen to what some of the crowd is saying now here.
What are you doing?
So ice out now is some of the chants that we've been hearing.
Yep, the familiar refrain of shame on you, shame, shame, shame.
You're betraying the oath to the country.
I'm a combat veteran. You never did nothing for this country. Excuse me. Army, asshole. Where we go, what? We go wall. You're a
Seems, John, there's some counter protesters there. One, as you just heard, we heard together.
John, exactly. Let's take a look at some of the other areas we've operated. Take a look at Illinois and the Broadview Federal Facility. We saw some of the same tactics used by some of these rioters and agitators and protesters. But even in Illinois, under Governor Pritzker, and he's definitely no friend, they still allowed state and locals to come in and work with the federal government to make that Broadview facility safer. That's all we ask here at the Whipple facility here in Minnesota is we want safe ingress, egress, so we can continue to conduct these Title VIII immigration operations. And anytime we can work with the state and locals, as we did in Louisiana, somewhat Illinois, and North Carolina and other places, that's always a success for all of us. John, exactly. Let's take a look at some of the other areas.
You know, $1,500. I mean, it's ridiculous, the prices of, and then add the deductibles on top of it all. Oh, this one's good. Trying to find the video. Yeah. Oh, this is it. Maybe not. So this was, by the way, all right, so this is scary. This caught on camera, and they think they have the guy who did it, but they broke into federal vehicles and stole a AR-style weapon. Take a look at this.
Almost there.
Oh, wow. There it is, right there. Oh my God. It's a gun case right there. Oh my. And this guy, I think, was identified. So, you know, again, this all has to play out. So don't know for sure, but there was a rifle in the back of a car that was taken by these guys.
There's some bullets. Hey, that's a 40 shell. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. They'll cry if they get shot. But listen to these animals, and they're like hyenas when they're going in there and taking this shit.
Ain't no way. Tourniquet there. Did he get?
So, you know, guys, I mean, there's people that are in here that are on the side of these people. Yeah, and that's how bad it is in this country that we have people like that here, and it's not a good thing, and it can't be like just when it was back in 2016 in the summer of love and, you know, the George Floyd riots and everything. It can't remain that way. You know, things have to get, you know, have to be reversed, and they have to be reversed hard.
Okay. Hey, don't film that. Who's that running? Go.
Oh, shit. They didn't do anything wrong. Why are they running?
Eventually, you know, with the truck, that's where it's all the line.
So there you have, I don't know why the cops would leave that stuff there to have that broken into, but you know what you're going to get. And then there's people like Xavier here who, is one of those types of people who loves violence and all that kind of stuff. But, this is what you're dealing with. You're dealing with animals and, they need to be put down. So, you should, leave the goats. Good loser. Let's see. No, this one's good. This guy, just minding his own business. Just minding his own business, trying to do his job. And look what happens with these dimwits.
Here you go. Yeah, like I said, I don't have to do this. I'm happy to do this. That's all. We just got to stop this.
So he's got a lot of camera equipment. I think we can say this isn't.
I'm not. I tried to tell the first lady that nobody believes me. That's all I can do is tell you. I already shot. Listen, first of all, I don't have to do any of that, but I'm kind. I respect what you are doing. Yeah. No.
What's weird as fuck is that you're here. Why don't you just leave? There's like hundreds of different places you can be. But you're getting off on the fact that you're here. So, make a decision. You're either going to stay and shut up or you're going to leave. I mean, if you don't like it, then go. There's no one keeping you here.
Really appreciate what you guys are doing. I just don't.
What's weird is a guy like you who's still here.
Were you here yesterday?
Yeah.
Yes, he was here yesterday. I can testify that. I didn't recognize him.
No, I appreciate your help. Thank you.
I'm not here to help you.
No,
I think the fact that you're in a vehicle like this at this
I
time
get it. But with all due respect to everybody, I can't help the way to drive.
You can. You can go rent something else.
She tells him to go rent something else. So he's like, I can't, like, I'm here doing what I need to do. And she's like, well, I'm sorry I have this, this is the vehicle that I have to drive. And she said, oh, no, you could have rented something else.
I just don't understand.
And he's kissing their ass.
Were you here yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay, bye, Xavier. Oh, you're not American. Go figure, loser. Where are you from? Are you another Brit? Before I kick you out of here, are you a Brit? Xavier, tell us what country you're from. I can't wait. It's either going to be Australia or Britain. Let's see if he answers. Well, then why are you calling us Americans then? Where in America, Xavier? Okay. See these, and what I know with a lot of people in here, unfortunately, this is what you're going to get. But yeah, I mean, this is the unfortunate part of not having insane asylums anymore. When you have, and I blame this on Ronald Reagan. A lot of people thought Ronald Reagan was one of the best presidents we ever had, but he made some really, really crucial mistakes. And one of those was to shut down insane asylums. And you see that all of these people that are out running around, stealing long guns, causing the violence, would normally be in a padded room in an insane asylum. And we don't have them anymore because of that. And they need to be brought back. And it's not just a meme anymore that we need to bring back insane asylums. We actually need to bring back insane asylums. And it's got way worse, over the years, especially with all the drugs and all the surgeries and everything else. And the people like us, like, we just want to live our regular, normal lives. And then we have, some freak tranny who wants to come out and kill everybody because they're nuts. Or the guy with the nail polish who wants to fight with cops, and then when he gets shot in the face or knocked out, he cries about it. And that's what we're dealing with. All kinds of different levels of crazy because we don't have insane asylums anymore. And this poor guy who's trying to do his job. Yeah, I mean, Reagan was good, but, like I said, JFK as well was part of it. They shut down the insane asylums, and that was just a bad thing. It was really, really bad. But this poor guy and of course he's like, I appreciate what you're doing. He's trying to kowtow to him, and it's embarrassing to watch. But these people are like ordering him around and telling him that he should have rented a certain type of vehicle.
Yes, he was here yesterday. I can testify that. I didn't recognize him.
I can testify to that.
I'm not here to help you.
No,
I think the fact that you're in a vehicle like this at this
I
time
get it. But with all due respect,
Look at this woman. And she thinks she's a social justice warrior.
I mean, if you're part of the media.
That's not how it works.
This is my business.
I know. This is not how it works. So anyhow, I hope you guys understand. Not here to
He
cause
was
any
here
problem.
with a video camera yesterday. I did see another vehicle with them, but I did see him with a camera.
Press badge when folks were talking to you on the side?
No. I told them I was with the media.
Okay.
And when people get irate with me, I have no choice to just roll out the window.
I think you gotta understand that some people were kidnapped.
It wasn't yesterday, because that's what we did the story on.
Sorry.
Let's just wrap this up.
Now, do you see, too, what happens is now they think that they're government and they're ordering this guy around, that you should be parking over here, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And so, again, this is just progressively getting worse and worse and worse day by day. And, Trump didn't do enough last time, and he certainly needs to do more this time, because you can't have these people going around telling this guy where he needs to be and you can't have that. And here they are. Here's Nick Sorter. They don't like Nick Sorter because this guy's calling him out, and he happens to be just about everywhere with a camera catching these assholes.
Your followers are little cucks too. Eat a dick. I hope you all kill yourselves.
There you go. Reminds me of somebody who got shot in the SUV the other day.
Your followers are little cucks too. Eat a dick. I hope you all kill yourselves.
There you go. Okay, I'm going to end this session on this most beautiful, wonderful video, and then I'm going to come back later tonight. So those of you that are here, do me a huge favor. Be sure that you subscribe. Joshua, I know you subscribe. Eat Me, subscribe. Let's see, Milk, definitely not Xavier. So all those guys that are here listening, make sure that you subscribe, because I will be coming back later tonight after I play this last one to go over more fun videos like this. Check this out. So all right, let me set this up for you before I go. So this guy over here with the in the black hat and black jacket, leather jacket, I think, is, he's doing his own counter protesting or whatever. He's just minding his own business, not bothering anybody. And this guy in the purple umbrella just continues to attack him, among others. And just watch what happens. So he just punched the guy. Now, it's a longer video, by the way. So the guy in the purple umbrella had been harassing this guy for a much longer period of time. And so finally, this guy had enough, and he punches him, knocks him out, puts him to sleep, like, temporarily. And then goes after another guy who attacked him after he did that. Now he gets more. And he punches a third guy. Here's a fourth guy that he's going after. And here comes Umbrella Boy, who he knocked out originally. Umbrella Boy wants more. So watch how he's going to take his gloves off. And Umbrella Boy is going to try and get in on it. Watch what happens to him. Knocks him out cold. And puts him right to sleep. I mean, this was when I saw this, and then, sorry for, I should just let it play.
Hey, guys,
then he hits
guys,
that and
guys.
knocks that guy out. I have to get back to this. So he's coming at him, hits him, knocks him out cold. This other guy comes at him, he hits him and knocks him out. Probably the most beautiful thing to end this session. Absolutely beautiful. And there was more to it. When I saved this one, I didn't realize I didn't get the whole thing. But this guy was harassed physically for an extended period of time before he finally said that that's it, I've had enough. All right, everybody, I'm going to shut it down for now. I will be back later on tonight. And thanks all of you that were hanging out with me for the last couple hours. And thanks, Joshua. Hopefully we'll see you later. And